I would see myself as a practitioner scholar. So I came to academia later, did my PhD when I was in middle age. And now I have a portfolio career. So I teach at New York University in Manhattan. I research and publish papers as academics do. And I also still work as a consultant and coach. That's kind of my career, and very much looking forward to talking to you about my research.
Thank you. So can I say that you are a critical feminist scholar? And if so, what is critical inquiry for you, and a critical inquiry that is ethical and embodied?
Okay, so I'll take this in a few parts. So um, I very much see myself as a feminist scholar. So I'm interested in all those who are othered in society. And that includes the more than human, not just the human. And I'm very much interested in ways of thinking and writing that come out of feminism. In terms of being a critical scholar, um, I see that as, if you're a critical scholar, we're interested in the disadvantaged, in issues that are perhaps not so much in the mainstream. But being a practitioner, I want to do work that also helps in a way, rather than sitting on the sidelines criticizing what goes on. So I'm very much into a mode of how do we connect with practitioners? How do we do work that's actually kind of useful? And then your third question was really about ethical research and embodied research. So I think I'll answer that with more than two E's. I'm going to use five E's as a way of an answer. So I think ethical, for me, it's really important that in our work we do no harm, and we exercise ethics of care. And that includes ethics of care to whoever or whatever, in a sense, we're researching, but also to the other in ourselves. So I think self-compassion is also important in that. Embodied in the materiality of our bodies is important. We're not just using our prefrontal cortex, we're not heads on sticks, but the body is important. Our bodies, the bodies of others. So materiality. Embedded, I think, is about being in relation. For me, the mind, again, isn't just the head. We come into being in relation to each other, and to the more than human. So that relationality, I think, is really important. Emergent. So I see phenomena as emerging and not static, always in motion, always coming in and out of view, which makes it extremely difficult to kind of see phenomena. And finally, equal. I don't want to be over the researched, over the data. How can we be in it? So those are my five E's, Cinzia.
Very, very interesting. And it fits very well with what we've been writing, actually. In your studies, in your research, you use a range of methodologies, and you have moved away also from traditional research methods. Can you give an example of a study for which you use feminist methods for producing data, or any method that for you is about these five E's?
Yeah. So, well, it all started, I think, as you know, with my PhD, and perhaps I don't know if I was lucky or not, but having not grown up, if you like, in classical research, it enabled me to be perhaps experimental. But I was reading the philosophy, the works of the French post-structural philosopher Hélène Cixous. And Cixous is very interesting, I think, in so many ways. One is that she's not a traditional philosopher. She's using writing and embodied writing and writing from the body. The other thing with her is that it was a time post 1968 where all the academics were, you know, activists. But she and Deleuze got arrested, and she was a single mom, and she said, "Well, I don't think that's really going to work. You know, my kids need me." So she became a playwright, and she went on, you know, literally wrote plays um, about social issues, and went to stage. Um, and that really interested me, I think, how to take these ideas to connect with a broader audience, an audience beyond readers of academic journals. And then I found the work of Tammy Spry, who's a qualitative researcher, but did performative autoethnography. So auto meaning self, ethnography, society, performing it. And so part of my PhD ended up being a performance in an experimental theatre, which then got videoed and submitted along with the dissertation. So that's how it all began.
That is, you know, when we think about the writing up or the analysis and then writing up, is thinking about the writing up out of the box, isn't it? So, how did you go about writing up or performing your data?
Yeah, so data maybe takes on a different meaning here, I think, because it's always emergent. But for me, insights arrive through this sort of creative embodied writing process. So so inquiry is taking place sometimes in the field, but it's also taking place afterwards through the writing, in which insights emerge. I think of Maggie McClure's work and the wonder of data. I think it's 2013, maybe 2014, that paper. But the hotspots, what glows. So insights emerge, and they continue to emerge. And I hope in that performative sense, there's something that connects with the reader, or if it's a performance with people watching it, and it continues, the data continues to emerge, or the phenomena continue to emerge. So it's not a static process. And it's not as if you gather up data, analyze it, and then write up findings. It's not linear so much as perhaps iterating and continuing, I hope, to move out there in the world.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Do you identify yourself with the, we can call it possibly movement, of doing research differently? Particularly, I think organization studies, but some of the other social sciences as well, they tend to follow quite strict conventions for quite a long time. And I suppose now there is more this movement of let's do things differently. So what does it mean doing research differently for you, or even writing differently?
Um, so I think to go back to my 5 E's, they're very important. So it's being very open. So as you begin to embrace a topic like garbage is a topic my colleague Nina Revsbeck and I are working on right now. How do you stay very open? And so you're reading. Out of the reading, sometimes concepts come to you out of that. It's not you're choosing a methodology so much as some idea works. And to some degree, the theory is sort of introjected into the body and sort of emerges with some ideas. So it's staying very open to see what happens rather than locking into a certain way of doing things. And then the writing differently is feeling free and unconstrained, to not write in a disembodied academic way, but to stay open to writing creatively. There are many different ways to do that. It might be poetry, it might be prose, but to experiment with the writing Lena Revsbeck and I, in a paper that was published in Qualitative Inquiry last year, we did something called worm writing. And I won't go into that here, but trying
You
to
can.
stay very open. And we write together. I mean, one thing with Google Docs, it's been a very interesting process. We sometimes literally write together in the document simultaneously, composing, which has been a fascinating process. So that's staying open in uncertainty, in not knowing, to see what insights emerge.
Yes. And obviously, you know, I had the pleasure you talked about cabbage. I had the pleasure to attend one of your presentation in which you used cabbage to talk about your work, and you actually brought cabbage to your presentation as part of your presentation. So can you, for people that have not seen your presentation, how have you used it and why, and what did you want to achieve? And I suppose that could be for the latest work on cabbage. It could be also for your PhD work, uh, bringing to presenting your work, bringing object, bringing a performance.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about that performance you saw, which was at EGOS last year. So we are researching garbage, in particular, sort of recycling practices or new garbage collection practices, which are being some very new practices are being put in place in New York City right now. So we're interested in that as a topic. But it's, as you get into it, what we were discovering is it evokes the sort of internal garbage in ourselves. And so that's part of it. And I think there were multiple objectives with that particular performance, if you like, that we did in the conference. So that paper is focused on trying to theorize differently, to understand perhaps not theory as something we take from these great, philosophers and use to interpret our research. Is there another way of thinking about theorizing? And we were experimenting with what did it mean on the streets with this theory that's interjected into our bodies to sort of almost be with the theory, to be becoming theorizing with ourselves and literally with the garbage. So that's the sense of the paper that we were trying to bring. And with working with our own garbage, we wanted to work also with the garbage from the conference. So what we brought in was yesterday's lunch, which we like to think we're all good citizens, but perhaps we weren't being such great citizens there in Milan because we were certainly creating a lot of garbage that wasn't necessarily being recycled or dealt with in the best possible ways. So we brought that in. And of course, or in our garbage studies, this has taken us into affect theory. So we were really kind of interested too in that the work on the streets had evoked this shame in us. Well, what might happen if we were working with the garbage in the room from the conference? And I think so we didn't know what would happen, right? This is being in the not knowing, but we brought it in to the conference room to talk about both our research, trying to theorize differently, working with affect, and just seeing what might emerge in the room. And I think a number of things did. They weren't necessarily comfortable, but we were talking about our shame. I think that shame moved out, and also with the visual of the garbage into the audience. And then we had some kind of interesting, I think, interactions in the audience, if you like, or the conference stream members around what had traveled from us and our garbage outwards. So multiple levels of what we were trying to do.
Yes, definitely. And obviously, the presentation, if we call it, within the room, it will be a different product that if you're writing a paper, as you say, you're putting it together with your co-author. Again, writing, it will be very different, isn't it? In the sense that the words on paper are might not give the same response to for the reader, in our case for the audience. So there are, the sort of research becomes multiple products, isn't it?
That's right. And we are still quite limited with traditional journals. So we're turning that work into a couple of potential papers. So one will look at this becoming theorizing, and that is more words. We're also working with it with a paper for an Academy of Management journal called Discoveries in Prose, where we can put photographs in. And pictures can be very, very evocative, I think, in a different way to words on the page. And the use of poetry and creative writing can also be very evocative, not the same as a performance. But I did, for a paper that was published in Organizational Studies, I did an audio recording. And that was an attempt to sort of capture something performative. However, I mean, one would think that the technology was there to embed the link in the paper, but it became a sort of, I don't know what the right word is, but something adjacent, like an adjacent file. I'm pretty certain almost nobody ever opened the adjacent file. So it's, yes, I don't know. We've got some way to go within our journals, even though we have all the ability to do it. I mean, I know you're going to put the sort of interviews for the book in via a QR code. So
Yes.
there's definitely ways to do it, but in our traditional organizational studies journals, we've got to sort of embrace some of these ways, because I think they can be quite important, and they're certainly important if we want to take some of our research, I think, beyond the academy.
Yeah, and it's also multimodal, isn't it? That is, again, another, we use pictures and we thought, how can we use something else? And at the end, we just limit ourselves to these interviews, but we're experimenting with QR code, and the publishers self, they just say, yes, we are, interested, you do it. We don't have the support, to do it. So we are experimenting, and fingers crossed it will work.
Yeah, I think it will be really, really great if it can. And maybe there's something to learn um, from some of the other social sciences, as you say, who maybe have been a bit bolder and braver than we have in
Yeah,
organizational studies to embrace some of this.
certainly. Is there anything else you want to share with us? Anything else that you think I've missed, or anything
Perhaps it's a
you
word
feel?
of encouragement, because people get nervous of this. But I really think over the last 10 years, this space has opened up in organizational studies. I mean, I've had papers published, other people have had papers published. I review papers, for some of our top journals. So I want to really encourage people not to think that it's something over there, but that we can embrace ways of researching differently, writing differently. Um, and I think what it helps do, not only reach out beyond the academy, but it helps us bring into at least glimpse phenomena that otherwise we wouldn't be able to see. And it helps, I think, us grasp sometimes things that are abstract. I mean, speaking for myself, affect theory seemed pre-personal, traveling, it all seemed a little intellectual to me until Lena and I were literally on the streets of New York, and we could really feel affect traveling from garbage to us, between us. So I just want to encourage people that it's a growing way of doing this work, and it's really possible. It's not on the fringe.